And we're going to welcome everybody to our last day of our 10 coolest conservationists in New Mexico. Today we are going to start with Mr. Tyson Sanders. I'm going to let him do his official introduction as for his title and all of that, so I don't mess it up, but we are super excited that you're here, Tyson. Thank you for joining us, and we are ready to learn. So as soon as you're ready, take it away.
Okay, bear with me on some of my Zoom skills. Let me see.
You're good. Take your time. We're all patient.
All right. So yeah, my name's Tyson Sanders. I'm a game warden in the Albuquerque area. I have a team of 5 officers. We cover, we have 2 Albuquerque officers, an East Mountain officer, and a Santa Fe officer. We pretty much cover everything from Klein's Corners to Mount Taylor and kind of a triangle up to Pewaukee. And I'll talk about what cover means and how we cover those areas as game wardens. First, I was going to talk a little bit about myself. I'm a city kid. I grew up in Albuquerque. I went to La Cueva High School, so I was a Bear. Go Bears. And until I was 12 years old, I never even met a game warden, never saw a game warden. But I was fortunate enough to have my parents get me some experiences in the outdoors. I can remember doing my first backpack in the Pecos Wilderness when I was 6 years old. And I remember hiking in and it raining and it just being a miserable experience. There was lightning cracking right by us. I was scared. I was probably crying at the time. But the next day the sun came out. We caught a couple of fish up at Pecos Baldy Lake. And I can remember getting back. And even at 6 years old, I felt like I had proved myself to my dad, to myself, like I was better for being out there, for being out in the wilderness. And I think that's kind of, if I allow myself to get sentimental, that's probably where it all started. My love for the outdoors, my passion for being outside is those experiences that I had as a kid. So any kids listening, I would encourage you to start getting some of those experiences yourself. If you want to get into this field, now's the time to start. So fast forward about 6 years later, I took my first hunter ed class. That's the first time I ever met a game warden, first time I ever knew they even existed. And then I wouldn't see another game warden for maybe another 15 years. In my 20s, I started school at NMSU for an engineering degree and quickly learned that I wasn't built for sitting behind a computer. Just wasn't something that was going to work out for me. So I actually quit school. And in my wanderlust of my youth, I decided I was just going to be an adventurer. And so I did all kinds of different jobs. I worked in Northern California. I worked on drilling rigs in the Piceance Basin, Colorado, Wyoming, Utah. I worked on a hay farm in Tatum, New Mexico. I even worked on a pawn shop on Central in Albuquerque. And then I landed a job working for an outfitter in the Pecos Wilderness, working as an outfitter and a wrangler, and started to get to experience some of those wild things again. And that's when I knew that's what I wanted to do. I needed to find a job where I could do that type of thing and be around wild things and be out in nature. But I wasn't getting paid a whole lot. That job just didn't pay. It was a great job, best job I probably ever had. It just didn't pay. I remember sitting in camp and the game warden came riding in that camp. It was Pecos Phil House. And he came, he sat down, he drank a cup of coffee with us. He checked hunting licenses, made sure all of our elk were legal, and kind of rode on about his business. And that's when I decided that's what I want to do. I want to be a game warden. And so, sorry, kind of hard looking at yourself when you're talking. So I went back to school. I went back to school at Eastern New Mexico University in Portales, and I got my degree in wildlife and fishery sciences. In the semester I graduated, they just happened to be hiring game wardens, and so I got hired on as a game warden. And I've, I did a year in Carlsbad. I was in the Carlsbad district for a year. I was in the Mora and Las Vegas district for 2 years. I was in the the Roswell district for 8 years, and now I've been the Albuquerque sergeant for the last year and a half. And to this day, I haven't done a day of horseback patrol in the Pecos Wilderness. So the whole reason I became a game warden was to do that, and I haven't done that yet. But I've gotten to do so many other cool things in this job, and I'll talk about those and the different things that I get to do in this job that make it just awesome for me to do something that I'm passionate about. And I get to explore wild places on any given day of the week. I get to go to those places anytime I want and do my job. So that's the beauty of this job. Now, if you'll give me a second, I'm going to try and switch over to my PowerPoint. Okay, is it there?
Yes, you're good.
Okay, awesome.
Good job.
Hey, all right. Okay, so this is my team. This is the Albuquerque Supervisory District right here, which consists of myself, Manny Overby, who's a Santa Fe officer, Tyler Twitchell, who's an Albuquerque officer, Dominic McCarthy, who's an Albuquerque officer, and Jerry Pohl, who's our East Mountain officer. And this is actually my daughter in the picture. She just passed a hunter education class that we taught. And so I kind of talked about how I became a game warden and why it's important to me. Now maybe I can talk a little bit about the why. And for me, this is the why right here. These are my kids. That's my son. That's my daughter. I have 2 other daughters who aren't in the pictures. But that's why I do this job, is so that I can bring these experiences to my kids, to other kids, to adults, to anybody who's interested in wanting to kind of satisfy that spot in their soul that says, I need an escape. I need a place where I can go experience wild things in nature. And if I can bring that to people, if I can use my experiences to kind of relay to people, and teach the kids that grow up at La Cueva High School that have never seen a game warden, don't know that these types of places or things even exist. I'm here to tell you that an hour and a half drive from now in the Pecos Wilderness, there is all the wild places that a person can enjoy to satisfy your soul. And so that's the why. That's the why I do this job, is for other people and to get them these experiences. Now I'm a game warden. I'm also known as a conservation officer. And so if you think about what conservation means, and I know many of you already know this, but conservation is the wise use of natural resources. And to talk about what wise means, what use means, and what natural resource means is a whole nother talk that'll take an hour or two. So I won't really get into those, but I want you to consider that I'm an officer for the wise use of our natural resources. So there's so many different job duties that we do as an officer for the wise use of our natural resources. And let me just take a few minutes and I'll talk about those for a little while. The first is something that Ross and Jennifer will talk about probably in detail here in about 20 minutes. But information and education is, as a game warden, as a conservation officer, this is perhaps one of the most important areas that we work, is educating the public on conservation and what we do, and on hunting, fishing, and trapping, and working towards recruiting new people into hunting, fishing, trapping, and into conservation, retaining them, reactivating them. And we do a lot of things to do that. There's so many different areas where we promote conservation, whether it's in the picture in the top left corner with the Ewok and the Stormtrooper, standing next to an officer named Storm Usry, by the way. That's at a STEM event in Albuquerque, and we were there promoting science, technology, engineering, and math. Or a fishing derby where we're teaching kids that just want to have an experience catching a fish, get them excited about it, or shooting sports, and getting kids This is at a Cabela's parking lot, and many of these kids have never even shot a pellet gun or a BB gun, and it just gives us a great opportunity to talk to them and educate them about safe firearm handling and kind of give them an introduction into what we do. So education is probably one of the most important things we do as conservation officers. The next thing that we do is law enforcement, and I probably spend the largest percentage of my time doing law enforcement. This particular picture is not us doing law enforcement. It's a display that we set up for a trunk or treat in Roswell. But you can see in the background all of the artificial wildlife, otherwise known as decoys, that we do use for law enforcement operation. For example, it's illegal to shoot any one of these animals from a maintained public roadway, or to spotlight one of these animals, or to shoot one without a license. There's a state law that says that's illegal. And so we will place these animals strategically in a location where we have high violation areas where people might be shooting at animals from a road or spotlighting animals, otherwise known as poaching. And we try and catch people poaching. And we use these animals, these decoys, this artificial wildlife to do that. And then we do so many other different kinds of enforcement activities, whether it's checking anglers at Tingley Beach or on the Rio Grande River or all over the state. That's one of the main activities that we do is check anglers. If most of our fisheries are put in take, meaning we stock them with fish, we have to set bag limits, so it's kind of equitable for everybody to catch some fish. Where if you look at the bottom right picture, if people catch 40 fish, that's too much for one person, and they've taken that opportunity away from several other people, and their ability to catch fish. So we're out there to enforce those violations and make sure that bag limits are followed, that people have licenses. And licenses are very important because that's ultimately what funds our agency. Or funds a large portion of our agency. We also get federal funding, but license sales is what pays my salary and what allows me to get out there and enforce these laws and make sure that we're protecting the resource and it's not getting depleted. So we have to make sure people have those licenses. You see the picture in the middle with the 2 shotguns and the dead goose. A couple of people that actually drove up on a roadway and shot those geese on private property and then trespassed and went and ran and got the geese. It's illegal to shoot an animal on private property without written permission, and it's illegal to go on that property if it's posted and you don't have permission. So we enforce those types of laws also. We also do OHV enforcement, which the bottom left is something we've been doing quite a bit lately with the increased activity. With COVID and everything, we've seen a big increase in activity of people riding OHVs at the OHV areas and just out in the woods, because people really need to get out and do things outdoors. And so a lot of people are riding OHVs. So we still have to be there to maintain safety. We have to make sure kids are wearing helmets. We have to make sure people aren't driving on pavement where they're not allowed to do so, and enforce a lot of these violations that potentially occur, and just be present so that we can make sure people are being safe. So we do OHV enforcement also. I could probably talk a really long time about cases made and different types of enforcements that we do. But I think you get the point. That's a large percentage of what we do as game wardens is enforce laws that protect the resource. As part of law enforcement, I like the picture on the left because I get stuck a lot. So anyway, I'm stuck in about 4 feet of mud there. I had to call for help and get somebody out. But we're in all kinds of conditions, in all kinds of weathers, out in nature, but sometimes in difficult situations of nature. And I guess maybe that's part of what appeals to me to the job is these dangerous situations. I don't necessarily think. I think it's good to not deprive yourself of dangerous situations, because just like when I was 6 years old, going backpacking in the Pecos wilderness and being scared and cold. I came out of that being a better person and feeling stronger, more confident because of it. So that's part of one of the things that's appealing to this job for me, is coming through these situations successful and better because of it. We also are one of the best trained agencies in the state, one of the best trained law enforcement bodies in the state, if not the nation. And we do a fair amount of training. We're certified police officers, so we've all been through the police academy. We do our own 6-week game warden academy, and then we do several other trainings to maintain our abilities: firearms training, defensive tactics training, simunitions training, which is basically realistic scenarios where we use paintball type ammunition to put ourselves in these situations so we can be prepared if we encounter bad guys in bad situations. So that's the law enforcement aspect of the job. I'm running low on time, so I'll try and get through these next 2 slides fairly quick. The other part of our job that we do is what we call depredation. We're statutorily mandated to deal with conflict between humans and wildlife, where the wildlife has caused a human safety issue or property damage. And so in those situations, we have to come up with often very creative solutions to problems to alleviate these issues between wildlife and animals. Some examples are deer in a hayfield or elk in a hayfield. If you can imagine 20 elk in a 10-acre hayfield, they can decimate that overnight. Bears that are getting into garages. We have a bear right now in Santa Fe that's been going basically garage to garage and waiting until it finds an open door and going in there and raiding freezers. And that becomes a pretty dangerous bear pretty quick. And so we have to deal with that situation. The picture with the 3 bear cubs, that was in Los Alamos just 2 weeks ago. Similar situation where a mother bear was basically had become so habituated to humans, she wasn't afraid, and she was becoming a safety issue, but she had 3 cubs. So we were able to actually successfully dart the mother bear and the 3 cubs and relocate them to a different location. The mountain lion picture, there was a mountain lion in town in Albuquerque, and there was basically going to be no way that it found its way out of town without creating safety issues to people's pets or people. So we darted it and we relocated the mountain lion. So that's depredation. That's the other part of the job that we do. That's where we're actively dealing with wildlife on a daily basis. In larger cities like Albuquerque and Santa Fe, it literally is on a daily basis. So that's actually a really cool part of the job, to actually, handle wildlife and deal with these situations. The other part we do is wildlife management. While we have biologists that specialize in these areas, we're often called to help with their projects, and every once in a while we have our own projects that we do. For example, the bottom right picture, we as a team in the southeast area got funding for these wildlife drinkers on a prairie chicken area and installed them. And the upper pictures that's an antelope, that's a drop net for an antelope. And so we worked this antelope trap in the Roswell area. We were able to catch these antelope and move them to a different location. I believe we actually traded some of these antelope with Mexico for some desert bighorn sheep. And so we do wildlife management projects. And Sarah, this is my last slide, so I'll wrap this up pretty quick. The other thing we do is fisheries management. We get involved in fisheries management, whether it's a small municipal pond like on the left. Basically had a pond that ducks and geese were defecating, they were pooping in the water, and that creates a really high nitrogen content in the water, which creates low quality of water for fish. And so we tried to figure out a way to utilize that nitrogen, and we built these floating vegetation pods, and the plants use up the nitrogen, use up the nitrogen in the water, but also the pod that it sits on is like is like a wealth of bacteria that also utilize nitrogen, and it helps take the nitrogen out of the water and make better quality for the fish that we stock in the public catches. The middle picture is actually a project that I was involved in that where we created a fishery. We created a spot where the public could go and fish through working with a private landowner and paying them money to let licensed anglers access and fish this property for bass in an area where there was no other places to go fish bass on public lands. And working with several different agencies, we were able to build a parking lot, outhouses, drainage, and even habitat under the water. So that's the end of my PowerPoint. Let me see if I can get my Zoom back up.
Tyson,
Okay.
you would never know that you're new to Zoom. That was perfect. Good job.
Yeah. All right. I get
All right.
like an A minus, right?
I'm gonna go ahead and say an A straight across the board. Good job.
Cool.
All right. Well, thank you, Tyson. Does anybody have, and I'm sure there are questions. I know I can already see Hunter's hand like, woo, here it comes. All right, Hunter, go for it, bud.
You mentioned like making a spot for bass fishing. Personally, I love bass fishing. That's kind of all I do. I kind of have a tackle problem. Almost have like a problem with bass fishing, like loving it too much. But do you bass fish yourself?
A little bit. I wouldn't say that I'm great at it. I wouldn't even say that I'm good at it. But yeah, I actually when we built that fishing area down in Roswell, that was one of the first times I ever really did some bass fishing, and it was such a good spot. I mean, you could catch 2, 3, 4 pound bass at this spot, and it was kind of fun. And that's kind of where I started to get into it and learn it. We have a couple little ponds around here. But I'm not the expert on bass fishing.
Maybe you can teach him something, Hunter. Hunter's
You
like
probably could.
Fisherman over here.
Yep.
Cool. That was a good question, Hunter. I see Jackson has a question. Jackson, go ahead, bud. Nope, hold on. You're muted, Jackson. No. Hold on, Jackson. Can't hear you. Hold on. I think you might need to unmute yourself. I can't. There you go. You're good.
Do you hunt yourself, or do you just teach people how to hunt?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I don't know if I would be any good at teaching people how to hunt if I wasn't a hunter myself. I am totally into it. I mean, pretty much that's all me and my family eat. I have a wife and 4 kids, and that's pretty much all we eat is game meat. And that's something that's really important to me is hunting animals and kind of sourcing my own food and eating my own food. But yeah, I love hunting. I actually drew an oryx hunt this year, and I didn't draw anything else. So I put in for a Wyoming antelope tag, and drew one. So that's what I'll be doing this year, hunting antelope and hunting oryx. And I could probably talk hunting stories for forever because that's kind of what I do. Give me a call sometime and I'll tell you everything I know about going hunting.
Okay.
He's like, don't try me. I will. Give me your phone.
That's what I'm here for. Yep.
All right, cool. Thanks, Jackson, for that question. It looks like Max has a question. Go ahead, Max.
So if an eagle gets too used to people or starts attacking people's pets, would you also have to take that one and relocate it?
An eagle?
An eagle or like a raptor or something like that.
Yeah, so we actually that gets a little bit tricky because eagle's a migratory bird. So we have to work with U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service or often USDA if we want to trap an eagle or a migratory bird. But there are some situations where we can try and haze animals. We have this time of year, maybe we're getting a little bit late in the year, but we have hawks and like Mississippi kites that get like really protective of their nests, and they start dive bombing people and get really aggressive. And a lot of times it's not so much the animals problem, but it's a people problem, and we just have to educate people and teach them that this is kind of a normal behavior. It's better if you know, rather than us moving the animals and potentially endangering their existence, we're going to do something to help the people get through the situation. So like if that's happening, we'll tell people, you know what, carry some umbrellas while you're golfing, and if you start getting dive bombed by a bird, you can pop that umbrella up and you won't really have to worry about it hurting you. So we try and come up with creative solutions where we don't have to hurt the animal, but we still kind of help people too. I don't know if that answers your question about the eagle, but that's kind of how we deal with it.
Yeah, that was a good question, Max. All right, do we have any other questions for Tyson? Let's see. Jackson, you have another question? No, okay. Anybody else? I was gonna say, Diego, you always ask a question. Come on.
So I'm curious, how many law enforcement officers are there in New Mexico?
I'm assuming game warden, law enforcement officers, conservation officers.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Probably, if we're full, if every district is full, including sergeants and corporals, probably in the neighborhood of 60, 55 maybe. And we're not always full. We have several vacancies right now, but about 60 officers covering the entire state. So we're spread very thin. We rely on the public help to help us enforce laws. And we try to really embrace the community policing concept where we become involved in our community and let people know that they can feel comfortable calling us and telling us, hey, I know this person that's breaking the law. Because the fact of the matter is we have so much area to cover. We miss a lot if we don't have help from the public.
Perfect. That was a great question. Thank you, Diego. I think we are going to say a big thank you to Mr. Tyson for being here this morning as one of our 10 coolest conservationists. You definitely fill a role that we haven't learned about yet, and so we're very excited to have you and thankful for all the information. If you're going to stick around, great. Otherwise, we're going to introduce Miss Jennifer and Mr. Ross Morgan, and I'm going to let them do their formal introduction and thank them for being here this morning as well. And thank
you so much, Sarah. Thank you.
Thank you, Tyson.
Yep.
Thanks, Tyson. All right, Jennifer and Ross Morgan, it is all you.
Great. Thank you all so much for having us today. We really look forward to talking to you guys. Since our time's going to be kind of split, Ross and I are going to split our time with you all, and then of course then we'll leave it up to questions at the end so you guys can ask away. So I'll go ahead and get started. My name's Jennifer Morgan. I'm the Hunter Education Program Coordinator with the New Mexico Game and Fish, and I've been with the agency now for about 18 or 19 years, so it's a great career, and most of it has been with hunter education. I started off in the fisheries world for a little while. So I worked with the Rio Grande Cutthroat Trout Restoration Project as part of a project when I was in college, and it partnered with the Department of Game and Fish. So I'm getting a little ahead of myself on that aspect of it, but like Tyson, I grew up in Albuquerque, here in Albuquerque, so I was a city kid. I didn't grow up hunting. Never even thought I'd ever be a hunter. That was never even in my mind. But like several of you all that are joining us today, you guys like to fish. And I love to fish. My parents took me out fishing and camping and hiking and anything outdoors. I was all about being outside. Even though I grew up here in Albuquerque, I loved being outdoors. I was always on a horse every time I could. Anything that had to do with outside, I loved it. And my parents really got me outside quite a bit growing up. But it wasn't until I went down to college, and I went to New Mexico State University, and I also got my degrees in fisheries and wildlife sciences. And that's when I got to be involved with hunting and shooting, and really enjoyed it and embraced it. And I got into archery quite a bit when I was in college. I took an archery class while I was in college, and I really enjoyed that. So I started off bow hunting before I even picked up a rifle. So really enjoyed that. So some of you guys might get to do archery while you're in school. And that was kind of a window of opportunity to explore bow hunting and then get into hunting. So I don't think that right now, if you don't think that you might ever hunt, that's okay if you do or don't. But it's really opened a lot of opportunities for me and enjoyment in the outdoors, and get to do it with my family, get to do it with friends. So, but circling back to hunter education, that's what I do now. And I work with Tyson and the other law enforcement and everybody in the agency to administer hunter education to anybody. Primarily it's folks your age, but it's everybody. I even have grandfathers come in to hunter education because they want to hunt in another state. But I love what I do because I work with youth. I get to teach you guys how to safely hunt and carry a firearm in the field, to help you grow in being a hunter or a shooter out there, that maybe you get involved with the shooting sports, whether it's shotgun, rifle, or archery. So I get to do a lot of that, and it's pretty amazing because I think back sometimes on some of the cool things I get to do for my job, and it's like, wow, I can't believe I'm getting paid to teach young people how to safely hunt. I also, part of my job, I get to take folks your age out on their first hunt. And that is super rewarding, to take somebody who has graduated from hunter education and then get to be involved with that first hunt and making those really cool memories with a family member. That just is the icing on the cake for me. It's super fun. So I get to do that for my job as well. I get to do a lot of traveling throughout the whole state, and I manage close to 500 volunteers. And so that makes my job super rewarding as well, because they're the ones out there teaching you guys classes and teaching you guys to be safe, ethical, and responsible individuals in the field. So, but there's lots of different things that I get to do and work with other team members of the agency. And to tie in what Tyson said, to have the wise use of natural resources is super cool and important. I'm looking at my time here. I don't want to tread on Ross too terribly much, but it's super fun. If you guys have not yourself had hunter education, even if you're just kind of interested in the outdoors at all, hunter education talks also about basics of survival outdoors. We talk about ethics. We talk about wildlife identification, especially if you're going to be hunting. It's important to properly identify what animal that you're going to be out there pursuing. So there's lots of really cool things and information that you can gain from hunter education, not just about firearms. So for those of you who might be interested, we can get you involved with that. And we have a lot of online opportunities, especially right now. And I'll be looking at doing some virtual hunter education probably by the end of next month. So if that's something you guys are interested in and you haven't had hunter education, just feel free to contact me, and me and my team of hunter ed staff. I've got Megan and Rose on board with me as well, and we'll get you on your way to taking a class and furthering your knowledge and experience in the outdoors. So I'll pass the baton off to Ross. A lot of the things that we do overlap, and I don't want to too much take over what he does as well. So,
well, good morning. I actually was kind of nervous about following Tyson. Man, what an incredible
Tyson
presentation!
Did an amazing job.
So, My name's Ross Morgan. I'm the Public Information Officer for the northwest part of the state. We have 4 different public information officers. We got one in each quarter of the state, and I actually cover the northwest part of the state. I'm going to go back to Tyson, and Tyson talked about his start in the career of wildlife, and talked about sitting in camp, and Phil House, which is a really good friend of mine. I've known Phil forever. We went to college together, and a super nice guy. But, having a game warden coming into your camp and sitting down and having coffee with you, checking your animals and make sure everything's right. I had a totally different experience growing up in Artesia. I grew up in a hunting family. I mean, outdoors, small town, totally different than Tyson and Jennifer. So I've been around it my whole life. I grew up in Artesia. My grandparents homesteaded in Alaska, so I lived in Alaska for 8 years. And so fishing, man, Hunter, I love fishing. So it's one of probably my most favorite, but I do love hunting just as much. My experience with a game warden, I was on a ranch that a friend of mine owned, a friend of the family's. I was young. I was in high school, early in high school, and got stopped by the game warden, and he was just really rude to me, made me feel like I was guilty of something when I wasn't. So from that point on, I knew that if I went into the field of wildlife, that I wanted to make a difference. I wanted to be that game and fish officer that wasn't like that. And so I worked out of high school. I worked in the oil field. Then I went into the military, was in the military, and then I came out and didn't actually get to college until, I was a little bit older, 24 years old. So it was different for me. And then I actually started out in a golf program. I'm actually halfway decent golfer, and they wrote me into this golfing program, and thought I wanted to be a golf pro and learn like Tyson. It just wasn't my style. They wanted to play golf every weekend. For me, it was more of a hunting and fishing. And so, I ended up going down to the ag department and getting my degree in wildlife and fisheries, 2 degrees as well. But when I started out with the Department of Game and Fish in 2000, just like Tyson, I was a game and fish officer. I was a Mountain Air District officer for 4 or 5 years. From there, I moved into a big game manager's position. And so I manage all the big game in the northwest part of the state, basically managing all the surveys, anything that had to do with numbers and managing elk and deer and all the other wildlife in the state. That was part of my job. And I really enjoyed that. But the one thing that I did miss was being in the field. Tyson, I'll have to say that being a game warden is one of the most gratifying and fun jobs within the department. So from there, I moved on to, I saw a position come open, which was a public information officer. And I saw that position and I thought, wow, I can still be a game and fish officer, but I can, do the outdoor things too that I want to do. I can still do the hunter education and do the hunts and stuff like that. So I took the public information position, and I've been in that job for quite some time. I remained a law enforcement officer for 17 years, at which time I started doing more outdoor stuff, getting to work with really cool people like Yancey and other folks and other educators, and doing hunter education classes, helping with youth hunts and things like that. And so for me, that just caught my heart. I love giving back, and I love seeing young folks out hunting and fishing. And so for me, that's basically where I turned my, my priorities and said, well, this is what I want to do, and I want to do this from here on out. So I ended up a few years ago giving up my law enforcement, and now I'm just an educator. Now, I just love and I enjoy going out, teaching hunter education classes, doing public information and outreach. I've worked with usually 3 other individuals. We don't have one in the Northeast area, but we have 2, Jeremy and Cody, which are in the Southeast and Southwest. And it's really cool because we all 3 come from different backgrounds, and we all 3 have different outlooks, which makes it really nice in our position because, they understand the side of Tyson and Jennifer growing up into the city, and me, I don't, I never grew up in the city. I live in Albuquerque now, which is a big change for me, but you learn to adapt and do that. And so working with these three other individuals, and then also Tristana there, and she's my supervisor, and she's an amazing supervisor. She's very supportive, never denies us anything we want to do. She's just very, very good at what she does, and that makes this position a whole lot of fun. So all three of us, and she's done a lot of things, different states. She's been in Wyoming, she's been in Arizona, and now New Mexico. So she has a vast knowledge of how our jobs work in many different states. So it's really nice to have those sorts of backgrounds. And if we have questions, we can call each other and ask. And like Yancey too, I mean, Yancey's amazing, does great things. And it's always great to watch him and see the things he does and learn from him. And I enjoy working with him. But, in this job for me, it's really fun, and it's great because you get to come up with lots of different things. And although you may preach a lot of stuff, there's a lot of things that don't happen. And so, one thing that I've been preaching for a couple of years, a program that I tried to come up with, is called the New Mexico Trout Challenge. And it's basically a challenge. You can go on our website and see. Have you seen that, Hunter? Awesome. So catch 5 of the trout in New Mexico. You're going to earn a coin, and a badge. You get a certificate, and it's really neat. And Hunter, if you want to call me, I got some information on bass. I'll talk to you about them, and then we'll go from there. But bass fishing, love bass fishing. Who knows? Maybe you'll see a bass challenge in the future. Maybe no. Would you be interested in that? So really cool, really great to get to do those things and come up with those, and have a supervisor that's very supportive in doing those. And it's just, it's amazing to be in a position and a job like this to where, we're behind a computer right now, but, in real time, we get to get out in the field. If you like being outdoors, this is absolutely something that you would be interested in. And for me, I love the outdoors, and as a game manager, it really didn't give me that flexibility. I was able to get out, and I may be able to go to ranches and do interviews with the ranchers, talk to them about their wildlife, and like Tyson said, give them, we do authorizations based on depredation, where Tyson and them deal with them on a different spectrum than we do. We try to get them to embrace wildlife and accept wildlife and give some meaningful benefit to wildlife. And in return, they get authorizations to hunt. And like Tyson, Jennifer and I, we very seldom eat meat from the grocery store. We're both hunters. You might have seen our faces a minute ago. We love to hunt New Mexico, and we love to hunt other states as well. We just got a hit on the credit card, and Jennifer drew an Arizona Coos deer tag. So she's really excited about that. She gets to go hunt Arizona, and it's neat. But, our freezer's full of wild game and full of trout. We just went trout fishing in northern New Mexico last week, and we brought back some trout to eat. So we love it. And I just can't think of any other job that's more gratifying than this, being able to do the things you love and get paid to do it. And that's basically what we do. Just like Tyson said, it's amazing to be able to work, get paid, and be outdoors all the time. And we really love it and enjoy it. And I know I do. And I don't know how much time I've got left over. I think Jennifer had a couple more things she wanted to add.
One thing that when I was listening to Ross talk, and especially Tyson as well, you never know where life might take you. You might think you're going down a straight path, and this is what I want to do, and this is my focus. I know I want to be like Tyson, I'm going to be an engineer, or I'm going to go do this. And that was something that I thought about probably when I was your guys' age, is, I thought I was either going to do physical therapy or I was going to be a vet. And then I got to school, and that changed for me. I thought, this wildlife department's pretty cool. You get to be outside, and and you get to make a difference in wildlife. And that's what's super cool too, is that working with Department of Game and Fish or other natural resource jobs is that you get to manage the wildlife or the habitat or the landscape, not only for hunters and anglers, but for everybody to enjoy. So everything that we do, if we're increasing wildlife or fisheries populations for sportsmen, we're also making a difference for anybody who likes to go out there and you like to hike and see deer in the Sandias. Everything that natural resource jobs do make that happen so people can enjoy the birds and the bugs and the lizards and the snakes and everything. So we're not always about big game management. We manage all facets of wildlife. So if you like fish, then come be a fisheries biologist. If you like reptiles and amphibians, come be a herpetologist for a natural resource agency. There's so many different jobs with game and fish that I could go on for another 20 minutes about, but there's always a niche, or there's always an area for you. So if you guys are interested in natural resources, whether or not you want to be a biologist or maybe you want to be an educator, you can come and be an educator for us. And so think about those things, and even though you might think you're not too sure what you want to do, that's okay. But definitely find something that you guys love, because then you'll never feel like you're going to work every day. You'll feel like, man, I'm very blessed to be able to do this and get paid to be outside and teach young people and handle wildlife and make a difference in natural resources. So give those some thoughts on what you guys maybe are thinking about a career path later on, and do what you love.
Yeah, and don't be afraid to call any of us if you have any questions or any concerns about anything. Don't be afraid to call us and ask us. That's what we're here for. We'll write our numbers down on a piece of paper, or maybe we can put it in the chat box. I think that might be a better place to put that.
We can add our phone numbers maybe to the chat box, and
Yeah.
if you guys would like to email us or have a phone call, then do that. And then you can always find us on Instagram and Twitter and Facebook. So go like our pages, and we're throwing lots of really cool content out there on lesson plans for wildlife, activities that you can do even in your own backyard. And then I've got some hunter education videos as well. So I'll put that up on chat right quick. If I can figure out how to get that to come up.
It's not a touchscreen.
I thought I was on my iPad and I'm pushing at the screen.
Awesome. So she'll put the numbers up there, but again, if you guys have any questions or have any, just anything education wise for the state, I wanted to be a game warden, and we'll do questions here real quick, but most jobs within the department require a 4-year degree. Game and fish officers, mostly there's some financial specialists that don't require it. And then also a hatchery job, which is, you get to work with fish all day, every day. Some of those don't require degrees, but definitely encourage you to get out, get a college education, and definitely pursue your dreams. And if hunting and fishing in the outdoors is, one of your dreams, then this is you just can't beat this position, waking up and getting to go to work and getting paid to do the things you love. So I guess if you guys have any questions, we can take those. I see Hunter already does.
Oh, shoot.
Yeah, go ahead, Hunter, you're first, bud. And then Jackson, you can go next.
So, Mr. Morgan, you said about that you love bass fishing, and I know you probably thought this question was coming, but what's your personal best bass, and what's your favorite place to bass fish?
Oh, wow.
5 pounds, so not huge.
Great question. I guess in New Mexico, probably my best fish is right around 5 pounds, and I caught that out at Elephant Butte. I would have to say smallmouth is probably one of my favorite fish to catch, but they're a little more difficult and a little further away than here. But one of the cool things about college, when I went to New Mexico State University, was there was a radio station just right off of Picacho Boulevard, and there was a drainage ditch that ran by it. And I just did an article on catching crawdads when we were in college. We used to catch crawdads, and we used to catch these real little bitty ones like that. And I knew there were bass in this drainage ditch. I just didn't know how many there were. So I thought, and I could never catch them. So I caught some of these little bitty crawdads and tied one of those on a hook and threw it in there and caught a monster largemouth bass right behind this little radio station. I think it's dried up now, but there's lots of really cool places you can fish. And in college, I tried just about every place there was. But I would have to say Elephant Butte, love catching the largemouth bass. And when white bass are spawning, man, that's throw a rattle trap out there and just clean house on them. It's really fun. So, but I think 5 pounds is about the largest, and for me, that's a really big bass. How about you?
Well, my biggest biggest largemouth was about 5, and it was in Florida. But I caught a couple, 3.5 to 4.5s in like Conchas and some of the drains and places like that.
Oh, wow. Well, my parents live in Texas, and they live on Lake Fork, which is one of the top rated bass lakes in the world. They have the lake on one side and the golf course on the other. And when we go and visit, we just grab a spinner and go out and just catch 2.5 pound bass all day long on the pond. So it's really fun. It's almost every cast. It's almost like cheating. So you would love that.
That's cool. That was a great question, Hunter. Jackson, go ahead, bud.
If you're a beginner hunter, do you have any what would you say for a beginner hunter they should start hunting with in New Mexico?
That's a great question, Jackson. So if you're brand new to hunting, I highly recommend finding a firearm that's going to fit you and that you're comfortable shooting. If you've got a 22 or even a BB gun, get somebody to help you understand. I highly recommend, if you haven't had hunter education, come see us. That gives you a really good foundation for starting hunting and shooting. It gives you well-rounded, and that will also help you better determine maybe where you'd like to start hunting. Small game is a great place to start. You can take a 22 out to the forest, get your small game license after hunter ed, and you can find some squirrels. Squirrels are pretty good eating as well. You don't get a lot of meat off of them, but they are a lot of fun. And so that's a good time. Rabbits as well. You do have to read up on some of these diseases, unfortunately, that some of the rabbits are having out there, but that's a lot of fun to hunt rabbit. And then as you feel comfortable and you start feeling more comfortable with shooting and with hunting small game, then you can start working your way up to deer or javelina. Pronghorn is another good one. Javelina are a blast to hunt. You can hunt them all day, and they're up moving all day, and they're pretty low impact. So javelina is a great a first-time hunt as well for anybody, youth or new adults. So there's some steps to take for that, but if you haven't had hunter ed, come see us.
I've had hunter ed. I've also shot guns before I ever went hunting. I do own a BB gun, but it's a Red Ryder, so it's not gonna do anything really. So
well, that's good.
Biggest gun I've ever shot was the AK that one of my friends brought so that we could shoot.
Well, good. It sounds like you've got some experience under your belt already. So maybe you'd be ready to go on a big game hunt, or even turkey hunting is a lot of fun.
Yeah.
No, not so much.
Maybe. I haven't been on a small game hunt at all, actually. Never done that before.
Yeah, place for you to start then. It's a lot of fun. You're out hiking around and you're looking for squirrels, you're looking for rabbits. Bird hunting is a lot of fun for quail and dove as well, and that season's actually starting September 1st. So
that's my birthday.
Oh, awesome. That'll be
birthday.
a birthday trip, is to get out and do some small game hunting.
Yes, we were planning maybe doing that, or we were going to go to Oklahoma a little bit ago, and I was going to ask my uncle if we could go feral hog hunting, but then we decided not to because
Yeah.
there was going to be a troop, I think. So.
Yeah.
Well, if you're want to consider, a firearm and you want to get into hunting and say you start out with deer, the 7mm 08 and the 243 are two really great cartridges to start with. Both very capable of taking down a deer and both have low recoil when it comes to recoil with a firearm. So I started out as a kid with a 243. That was my first rifle, my first deer rifle, and then just off from there.
Would a 223 work?
Yes, a 223 will work. It's a little smaller caliber, less kick, but it's all about the bullet and shot placement too. 243 has just a little bit more knockdown power, so things to consider when you're hunting. And do you have a 223 or know somebody that does?
One of my uncle's friend has a 223, and he shot a buck with it.
Absolutely. Yep.
I believe that's a minimum caliber that's acceptable for deer hunting in New Mexico as well. So it's all about shot placement.
What caliber should you use for like feral hogs? Do you have an opinion on that?
They're pretty tough animals. You definitely don't want to shoot them with a 223 because their shoulder right there is really thick, and they're kind of bulkier animals, so they're more to harvest. So I would definitely not use anything less than a 243. A lot of the time, I've taken several with my bow, but again, it's all about shot placement and waiting for that right moment to get that into the vital areas. So again, I highly recommend a higher caliber firearm for a feral hog.
And it all comes down to ethics when you're talking about harvesting animals. Although a 223 might be more than capable of killing a hog, we want to make sure that we take those ethical shots that are going to, put those animals down really quick. We definitely don't want to, have a bad shot and have an animal running around, wounded. It's just out of respect for the animal that we're hunting. So that's why we're always, preaching just going up a little, a caliber size when you're hunting wildlife.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you for all your good questions, Jackson.
Yes, great.
Yeah, definitely. Does anybody else have any questions? No, Max says no.
Oh, I see Hunter's raising his hand slowly.
Go ahead, Hunter.
I know you mentioned a bass challenge now. I don't know if that's actually going to happen, but I would definitely very much enjoy that. I mean, never actually caught a spot in New Mexico, but I know that they're in there in Carlsbad and some lakes, of course, but yeah, that would be very exciting. I wanted to do the trout challenge.
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh.
He froze up.
While you're sitting there, I would love for you to send me an email or give me a call and a shout and tell me what you think about a bass challenge, and if we did one, some of the things that you would like to see incorporated in that, because it's a reality. It could happen and could be something that we come up with and put out there, because we have one for the cold water fisheries and we definitely have a great warm water fishery in New Mexico, which people don't realize. You can fish year round for these bass in New Mexico. So why not start a bass challenge? So give me your ideas. That information again is
It's on the chat.
It's on the chat. So give us your input. Let us know what you think, and we'll definitely put that into consideration.
Thanks, Hunter. All right, guys, we are going to call it a morning. It is 10:02. We want to thank everybody. We want to thank Tyson Sanders for coming this morning, and Jennifer and Ross Morgan for sharing with us this morning, and for being 3 of our top 10 coolest conservationists here in New Mexico. And that wraps up our entire week. And I want to thank everybody that showed up every morning to learn about all our awesome community members here in New Mexico, and for allowing us to really bring you in and teach these kids about all their opportunities that they have for their future. So thank you, Jennifer. Thank you, Ross. Thank you, Tyson. We appreciate you.
Guys, have a great weekend.
Yeah, you too. Get out there and go fishing. Right, Hunter?
Thank you all so much.
Hey, Ross, Jennifer, thank you guys. Good job,
Thank
Yeah,
Sarah.
thanks for the
Thank
invite,
you,
guys.
Tyson.
It was great seeing everybody. Have a great rest of your weekend.
Thanks everybody for joining today.